Welcome to Seek Reality with Roberta Grimes. Joyous conversations about what the afterlife evidence and modern science combine to tell us is true about our one reality. You have nothing to fear. You are eternal and you are perfectly loved. Knowing the truth changes everything. Now, here's Roberta.
Welcome to Seek Reality. I'm Roberta Grimes, and I'm so happy you're with us today. Oh, my dear Seek Reality friends, there are so many really great experts now in our Rolodex that we basically almost never take anybody new. I think you realize that by now. That we have a lot of favorites. And I often hear from agents just about every week for potentially, wonderful new guests. So, however, it isn't very often that I think, okay, here's somebody new and that we should really add to our tribe. However, this week and next, we're going to be hearing from two new guests whose agents managed to present themselves in such a way that I thought, okay, let's see what our listeners have to say about these two new people. And so if there's anyone you hear that you especially like to hear from again, please let me know. Karen Fullerton is our guest today. Karen is a certified quantum energy teacher, and I thought that was pretty sexy thinking. And she's a thought leader around emotional freedom and well-being, and that sounded good too. She's founded her own nonprofit. She's raised 7 figures for it. That's a lot to raise. And she wrote a book she called Sergey's Eyes, Reflections of Soul Lessons, but I wasn't allowed to read the book. The agent said, no, she's moved on already. And that's another interesting thing about Karen Fullerton, that she didn't even want me to read her book. In this point in her career, she's into something new. She is now all about helping women to emotionally flourish and spiral upward. Okay, that was interesting. So I had to read her website. Her website tells us that she's a popular speaker who helps audiences to get their groove back and feel excited for their futures again. Whoa, okay. I read more. She said that emotions are the key to unlocking the power of your mind. Well, I know that's true, but almost nobody in the rest of the world knows that's true. So that was really interesting to me. She said it's more than what you feel. Emotions are energy frequencies. That's true, but how does she know that? They guide you to spiral upward in life, in relationships, and in business. Wow, okay. She's learned that success isn't a product of determination or mind alone. Emotional energy is the catalyst for mental wellness and spiritual and professional growth. She talks about how emotions are the language of our soul. She asks her audiences if they are ready to interpret them and to spiral up their excitement for life. Karen loves awakening others to discover their inner expert and to facilitate self-empowerment. She is a storyteller, a coffee lover, well, everybody is that, and she's a pet and nature advocate. Karen, welcome. Wow, I'm anxious to meet you. It's great to have you with us today.
Thank you. It is my absolute honor and pleasure to be here. Yes. And I do need to correct you. I would love for you to read my book, Sergey's Eyes. I will get you a copy, especially since good. You have a relationship with animals as well. So,
well, I actually, I'm not an animal person. No, I'm a person, but there are things about what you do, which I'm kind of amazed about. A couple of things. One, why are you primarily focused on helping women? Why is that?
The reason is that women are going through so much change energetically, and we have for a long time, but this is a time when feminine energy must balance out masculine. And I don't mean gender. I mean like a yin yang balance of energy. And we're finally realizing that there are generational patterns of energy from ancestry that need to be released because so many women are having their own businesses and falling short of their dreams and blaming themselves. And so I have a passion to work with women specifically because it goes deeper than just the mindset.
Because a lot of men are also needing to balance their energies, don't you think? I mean, don't you think
Oh,
that?
certainly. Everybody, my husband included. I mean, my husband's probably a more what you would call feminine and open and uh conscious individual who has a very good balance of feminine and masculine energy. So I don't mean that to discredit, that gender. I guess maybe I should say that it is more about the feminine energy and going within. And if you just look at it on a numbers scale with just the clients that have been attracted to work with me, that has been mainly women and
Yeah,
getting over some abuse and some of the,
but
yeah.
I bet a lot of men could use what you do as well. I would think so. Because, I mean, I work with men and women too. And in my career, most of my career has been working with business owners. I'd say probably 70% of them have been men, but 30% have been women. And a lot of the men could have used what you do. But the big thing that interests me about what you do, and the thing that amazes me about what you do, is that you have independently discovered something which I know about, but which many people don't know about, and I discovered it by doing afterlife research. And that is, you've discovered the fact that all of reality is consciousness based and is governed by emotion. I mean, my dear, wonderful friend, you've discovered something gigantic and almost nobody knows it. And you use it in your career to help people make their best life. It's huge what you've discovered, and it's gigantic and amazing and wonderful what you've discovered, and you're using it to counsel people. And hooray for you. What a wonderful thing you do. And
Thank you.
can we talk about that? Because that's really big, and men and women both could use that.
Absolutely. I would say that the trauma, the obstacles in my life as well as everybody else's life are what woke me up and what made me want to learn more and dive into self-growth and healing practices for we're going on more than 20 years now. And I grew up with the power of the mind already. Generation X, I had your your typical parents of, working parents, divorced, latchkey kid. I was very independent. They were very supportive of the mind. And I always had this determination. And yet when it came to the emotions in the household, it was always, this might seem familiar, don't cry or I'll give you something to cry about, or, the bad
They
emotions.
didn't really say that, did they?
Yes.
Oh
Or the
my
bad
word.
emotions, we don't want that, right? It's like you need to force happiness. So
Oh,
um, I did that for a while. I became this cheerleader, literally, in my early years of putting on a happy face. And that started to show, so I also have a Reiki background, and the physical plane, the physical symptoms are the last to show an imbalance when there has already been an imbalance in the other three energy fields or bodies of the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual. And it's just started to show. It started to show emotionally, and I was very reactive, very reactive. And so I just leaned in. And that's really how, I mean, I know we have more to go with this, but I just wanted to lay the foundation of that's how I got
oh yeah,
started.
great.
And as the premise for, we need to look within. That's why your emotions are the key. Experts, myself included,
Yes.
are wonderful to get your information, but ultimately it will only take you as far as you can go to get the results you want when you learn from what you've learned externally and apply it within and become your own detective of yourself.
Yes. But this is such an extraordinary, this is an ultimate topic, because this is why why we are born on earth, to learn how to raise our personal consciousness vibration away from fear, which is the lowest vibration. Fear, hatred, anger, all the Ishi vibrations are the lowest, toward love, which is the highest vibration. We are born on earth, literally into these bodies for that one purpose, to raise our vibrations. And you know that without having been
Yes.
taught it. You learned
Well,
it yourself independently.
I have had some great teachers along the way, but I don't want to say I shift. I integrate. I learn a little here, I learn a little here, what resonates from within. And you mentioned fear and love, and I'm going to quote from a dear friend of mine and one of the founders of one of the techniques that I use called the Lifeline technique. His name is Dr. Weissman, and he always says, fear is love expressing the best way it knows how, because fear is a representative of our subconscious and it's a protective mechanism. And if you're being protected, just think of like a baby from something that it's not emotionally ready to receive. That's love in strange wrapping paper.
Pretty strange.
And,
Yes.
yes. And so I've really learned through him and through that technique how to bridge spirituality and the science and the biology of our body and how the brain and emotions chemically work with one another to raise consciousness through emotional processing. I like to say that I think you read it in the beginning, that I believe emotions are the language of our soul. I mean, we're a spiritual being
Absolutely.
in a physical body, and we're here to learn. We're here to feel. And so
Yes.
it's just like if you don't know Morse code, at some point it might just be noise. And you're like, shut that thing off,
Yes.
And
Right,
so when
right.
you understand and have this communication with it, and ultimately to process it, how it came in is through the senses. Our senses are so important to our emotional processing. So I have seen wonderful progression in my own life and my journey when I was knocking my head against a brick wall. I was the doer. I did my own businesses, and, success is measured so often by accomplishment. We've heard this, where it's really about self-fulfillment and satisfaction, and we think those are tied until they're not.
But how wonderfully this has worked for you, and it would work for you. This is the core thing we are here to learn. Do you know who knew this and who taught it so beautifully? Jesus knew this 2,000 years ago. If you can believe that's true, all of his teachings teach this exact same thing. Isn't that amazing?
And he was a great healer. I believe too, dipping my toe in here, that he was also teaching us that we are, like, we have the God light, God source in us.
Of course.
And that we're all healers.
Yes, yes.
And showing that it is possible from all that he accomplished through compassion and love and connecting.
He taught us how to do all of this 2,000 years ago. But of course, nobody understood what he was talking about, because it was the farthest thought from their mind. Everything that the religion teaches is fear-based.
Yes.
And everything he taught was
that's what we're evolving through.
Yep.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what we're getting away from now.
Yeah.
So when I got into your materials in preparation for doing this with you this week, and I realized what you were doing, I thought, wow, this is really amazing. No, you've nailed it. I'm sure you're doing wonderfully with your teachings, with your talks, and with what you're doing. Do you do private counseling then, as well as talking before groups?
I do. So I used to do Well, I still do one-on-one sessions. A session is a 90-minute session that utilizes that technique I told you about, the lifeline technique, that has so many different neurolinguistic programming aspects with chakra work, with sensory. We have these, we do sensory work with the color glasses and sound therapy. And what I recently shifted to is a prerequisite that is super easy, and it lays the foundation. I call it, it's a self-guided course. It's 7 insights to emotional wellness. And it goes over some of these concepts that we're talking about, and it all has the re's in front of it. I like release, relationship, reframe, to tie in with the symbol for my work, which is the spiral. And so by that laying the groundwork, it really sets the foundation for people to become empowered in their self-healing. They're invested in their self-healing.
Right.
And that to me is so important, to feel that first and to know that, and that a session is never to or for somebody, it's with them. And they're going to take that knowledge because, as we mentioned, true change can only come from within.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, so I do that. And then there's a consult with that. And after that, happy to do the one-on-one sessions. And I know that we're talking about men and women and human consciousness, but I have also these sessions that I do with animals and the earth and homes as well, because from a quantum perspective, everything is energy, and the energy in homes within walls can be an energy imprint as well. And so when you're clearing that energy and helping the land to flourish and our animals to flourish, we're helping ourselves as humanity. So it's kind of an indirect healing as well, one-on-one direct, getting that self-empowerment by learning and understanding and having tools to process yourself. I never want to be a crutch for anybody. I never want to be that, you have to come to me, you have to feel better.
Yeah,
I'm the opposite. I'm that teacher. I'm like, no, you have this, right? Like, Jesus, teach Amanda to fish and instead of providing it all the time. But yes, so, and then I love to speak. I've been shifting that as well because I want to bring joy. So I have the teaching aspect of what I do, and that's been in my blood. I also teach college classes in business. I have a marketing background, and that's what I teach still. But it's really teaching people how to use the tools that they have and sustain themselves and their growth, and how to sustain motivation, really. Yeah.
So the people that you most help, the people who you're most likely to be able to help, what are they like?
If I'm being honest, it's other healers or other practitioners, because we all get this sense of like an identity crisis. We're all going through things. Nobody is,
nobody's there.
Nobody's, free
there
from the life of the world, right? The pain, the fear, and the stress. And then a lot of people come to me. I know this, myself included. That's maybe why they're being attracted to my work, as I did the same. I know this. I should be doing better emotionally, physically, whatnot. And it wasn't until I learned how to integrate, our spiritual practices with what I learned with the biology and the chemistry of our body and our connection to source. It's all a yin and yang and a flow. And so that's who I primarily help, because there's this, like I said, this identity or why am I doing this? I'm preaching, I'm helping my clients, but I'm kind of a mess right now. What can I do? And we're not
having a good day.
we're all at some point or another there. And that is the point of like the catalyst to growth and to evolution, when you feel that and know how to process those emotions. And, I talk about, if I would shift really quickly, what will help most people listening is to shift away from the story behind your emotions. we're so apt to say, are blaming, oh, when I think of my mom, or oh, when I think of my in-law. And, the mind doesn't know the difference with the chemicals that creates, and the emotion that you feel between what's happening right now and what happened in the past, or even in the future when you're vision boarding. It's pulling it into the now. And so it's keeping that pattern in a cycle. So that's one of the very first things I talk about is just focus on the emotion. Take it out of the person, the place, the thing that can keep that in a loop, because they're just the mirror to show you, where that work needs to be done.
What I teach right now, it's exhausting, so I don't know. I think I may be teaching my last class in it for a while. What I teach is how to raise their personal spiritual vibrations permanently, because that's what we're here to do. That's what Jesus actually came to teach. He didn't come to Nothing that the church teaches about Jesus is actually true. He had a whole different purpose. And he taught people how to get past all of these things. And his teachings work beautifully. It's amazing. And I'm just now beginning another class in that. And it's quite amazing to me how much you have nailed all of this stuff without having studied all of the things I've had to study and work on and do. I mean, I've taken courses in the teachings of Jesus and in applying them and all of this, and I can teach all of that now. But you just sort of natively in studying it in yourself and in others, and without having studied the Gospels, you know all this stuff. I think it's quite wonderful, really, what you're doing. And it's great. It really is. But he taught
Thank
us
you.
how
I
to
think
get
part of it
past.
is innate in me. It's like just add water, boof.
Yeah, yeah. But he
So,
taught us how to get past all of that. And it works. It's amazing how well his teachings work. What is, I think, most amazing to me is he came to Earth knowing this stuff. That's how one reason I know that he came from God, because he was born knowing this stuff and nobody else ever has been. But anyway, I digress. I'm just so fascinated to know how much you know, having studied all of this. And he was born knowing it all.
yeah, we're all here to wake up,
Yeah, we are
right?
all
We're
here.
all here to wake up our consciousness. And what helps us to wake up um, is honestly that pain, fear, and stress and the emotion so that we can learn the why behind it, but not the conscious why, like the processing. Like just when I say why, so many people don't know what emotion they're feeling past anger, sad, happy, grief. And I work
We're
with a
afraid of
list of like,
emotions too. Have you noticed that? People are afraid of their own emotions.
absolutely. And I believe, just from my own, I guess my opinion is that because myself included, first of all, nobody likes to be, it's uncomfortable. And so we don't want to go there. But the reality of it is, it's kind of like ripping off a Band-Aid. It's like you can pick at a scar and it's going to be there forever and you put on a Band-Aid, or you can just, peel the Band-Aid in one, full swoop, or peel it incrementally and it hurts longer. And, even stuck drains that we pour Drano down needs to clear and bubble up, but it's shorter lived than if you just lived with that stuck drain your whole life. So I
Yeah.
think there's a perception change. And once we get out of the judgment, like I talked about before, of blame ourselves, right? I think people don't want to go into emotion because then it's like they're going to feel like this self-blame, self-guilt.
Yes. We had to get
And
past all of that. And that's all that, again, that's stuff
yeah,
that Jesus taught. He taught all of it.
yeah. And it's actually, it can be an easy journey, but it doesn't, not an easy journey. It's simple, not easy. Maybe I should say it that way. It's simple.
Profound, so profound, my dear. Simple, not easy. Yes. So, all right, where are you going with this? What is your journey? Because
My
you're young.
journey,
Where are you planning to going? Where are you
yes,
planning to go with this?
interestingly, I've always been a numbers person in marketing and in my own business and raising dollars, right? Numbers have always been my my goal. And I've shifted away from that. And my goal is to just help ignite a light in women. Ignite. I've always been dubbed a catalyst, even when I was in marketing, a catalyst for change versus an energy catalyst, getting people, like a revelation that leads to transformation. So, I don't have a goal. I don't keep track of numbers anymore. I keep track of, I guess, progress. Where am I going? Where am I invited to go? Who, just this movement. I feel like when we're in the energy and the flow of where we're supposed to be, that passion, opportunities present themselves. But back to my speaking, I'm shifting my speaking. I used to speak on things like this, like we're talking about with podcasts. And then I realized I want people to know and feel joy. Because when you're in joy in the moment and laugh, it's a natural healing occurrence.
Yes.
And
So much.
You
Yes.
let your vulnerability down, right? When you're learning something, part of you is like, do I trust this person? What's going on? And yet if you just are in communal presence with somebody and you can have a conversation and joke a little or laugh. So I shifted my speaking to a partnership with my husband, who's a musician. And we use 80s music, little tidbits, and, getting the memories going from songs like Journey, Don't Stop Believing, and, things like that. Or one that was a favorite is, I don't know if you know the Prince song, when the elevator tries to bring you down, go crazy and punch a higher floor. And he'll sing that because we think of life as a linear. Oh, we're down here, we got to go up. And what I'm saying is, that's not always the most efficient way to go. We need to learn how to live, and I'm going to do it. So my body naturally goes in a spiral. When I talk about a spiral, we need to know how to ebb and flow and balance. And so my speaking is another part of where I'm going, and to bring joy. Believe it or not, I'm taking a stand-up comedy class in June just to add some humor.
Great idea. Yes. Yes.
And and just to feel that energy, to feel what
joy. Yes.
We're so weighted down by the world right now. And
yes. And and there is more than two ways to look at the world, but there's certainly anytime you look at the world from a joyous position, there are elements of joy in it. And if you can show people how to look at the world that way, I naturally do. And when I do that, it used to irritate people, I found, especially men, especially very young men. It would irritate in college. I can't tell you how it irritated the boys in college to see that I was always happy. It ticked them off. But you know what? So what?
Exactly. That's their issue. That's their trauma. That's their I always wear these glasses. That's their lens of misperception, not you.
Yeah. What a great idea. You can go around shedding. Yeah. Just, what is it? Love is the fragrance that the violet sheds on the shoe that has crushed it. That kind of thing. If you can go around doing that, wow, that would be beautiful.
And to actually feel it. Right? To feel that laugh, that belly laughter, or just the sigh of relief or something.
There is so much wonderful in the world. And this day this is the only time this day will be lived. And we don't know how many days we have. So let's show people joy in this day. There is so much to be joyful about in this day.
And we all have that, but it's shrouded, like we talked about before, in some of those emotions and the grief and the shame that literally you can't control. And that's what I want to let people know, is that it is nothing that you have done. In fact, so many of it could be past generations, because we do carry forward trauma from generations. In fact, it gets exponentially bigger. So when you're on this journey of the mind and only the mind to figure it out, how are you going to figure out that it's, 10 generations ago on your mother's side that's and
Yes.
it stems from emotionally disengaged, or something. And so that's the work that we do very simply just by using, the senses to literally reprogram our cells. The protein was the epigenetics part, the science part of things, which I'm not a scientist. So you don't have to know science to do this. I just dove in a little.
That's right.
It's just experience. It's just allowing yourself to go through being guided through an experience and to feel that revelation and go, wow, okay.
But you don't know how much time you have. None of us does.
Exactly.
And so this day, though, you have, and this day you can choose to be happy and to make everybody that you meet happy too. What a beautiful idea that is.
And it goes beyond, well, this is going to sound strange. Yes, choosing, right? What we don't wish to experience and we don't choose is just the reactiveness of everything I was talking about. But when you choose, okay, what would I choose? Well, my heart would choose to feel this, this, and this. And that sets everything in motion. But eventually, and this is my goal, you talked about a goal, that we stop talking ourselves into feeling a certain way or choosing, that we just are. We just are, because our body and our spirit and our mind and our emotions are finally in that wonderful recipe. And you feel joy naturally without saying, today I choose to feel joy. You will just be it. That's my goal.
But you can start it. You can start to be there by making the choice.
Absolutely.
Because some people are not, it took me, I was past college before I understood why it used to irritate so many of the boys when I was in college, that I was so happy. Because I didn't realize until I was probably in my late 20s that not everybody feels that way every day. I naturally have this set point, which is very high. I was happy all the time. I was like a burbling idiot to a lot of people.
And it sounds like you were blessed with a lot of the...
I was blessed. I didn't understand until much later what a blessing it is, because some people are born like Eeyore, the donkey, they're just down. They have to work at it. So work at it. You can choose joy. And why not? Because this is the only time you'll ever have it.
Yeah. One of the phrases that we go through in what's called the lifeline technique with the quantum energy is a question. Are you open, ready, and willing to use your imagination? Right? So somebody who is in that grief state, because we become addicted to emotions, they're comfortable. You would say, no, I don't choose this, but it's comfortable, whether it's anger, whether it's depression, whether it's that Eeyore kind of grief, it becomes an identity, an energy imprint identity. And so when you use your mind, it's like, are you open, ready, and willing? And you actually consciously process that. Yeah, I'm open. I muscle test. Are you? What is it like to be open? And you have to sometimes work with people, even on the conscious choice, to align their energy to it. But it starts, like you said, with that, what would I choose? What do I choose?
Yes, right. Yes. And ultimately, everyone can choose joy. Some people are going to find it harder to make that choice. Some people will have to work at it for a while, but it's a habit ultimately.
Yeah.
It is a habit.
That's what that very intro self course does. It talks about reframing as well. So, that when you say you have to work at joy, to look at our concepts around, when we think of joy, some people, like those men in your class who said, oh, we get anger. So if we ask them, what do you, what comes to mind? What do you think of when, you see somebody very joyful? It could be surprising. It could be jealousy, right? It could be, in a sense, like, oh my gosh, my parents, right? I have to go on this. I'm a fast track. I would love to be that way. It's all like what our environment has kind of instilled in us. So when you dig into and unspiral the emotions that are pulling back or in training, I like to say, so our mind is positive thoughts and it's creating this wonderful energy. But if the energy of our past, our ancestry, the emotions, the DNA, it
Yeah, I never
entrained you back.
realized that. I had a very happy childhood. They did not.
Yeah.
I did not get that. I was naive. I was naive. I didn't understand.
Yeah.
But
But like you said, that's a blessing. We all have our own paths that
yeah,
wake us up. Yeah.
but I didn't even realize so much later than that. I mean, I guess I felt bad when I realized that they probably were depressed. I didn't even know what depression was. I still don't to this day know how it would feel to be depressed.
Mm,
But you know what? We all have something to overcome, and they had that to
absolutely.
overcome. And if that's what you need to overcome, then let's overcome it. Because this is not your only life. I understand now you have many lives, but let's make this your best life.
Yeah.
Everybody can
And
make it your best life.
you bring up a good part, like, point about overcoming. We don't even have to know, I shared this, we don't have to know what we need to overcome if we're just willing to be open and willing to choose a different path to joy, because the act of trauma itself does not equate to the level of emotional um, strength or the emotional reaction that we have. I came from a fairly normal childhood. I mean, I talked about it before, Gen X. So I had, divorced parents. Well, that's kind of a norm, and my
Yeah,
family had
but
health
then they
issues.
told you if you don't stop crying, I'll give you something to cry about or something. That's
Yeah,
awful.
and things like that. But other people, I mean, I used to compare myself. Well, oh my gosh, that person has a physical, issue, or that person had this and this, and it's like, no, it doesn't matter, because what we learned from science, actually, and they tested how, unfortunately, I'm such an animal advocate. I don't, of course they tested it on mice. They put up cherry blossom with mice and, inflicted some pain. And so, of course, like Pavlov's dog, they see the cherry blossom and they get the pain response and they shoot, they flee. Well, generations, it got to where they didn't even have to show the cherry blossom. It was already like that fear was already, within them,
Oh,
or like the length of time between showing it and their level of symptoms of heart rate and everything is so much higher. And so don't judge your emotions, please. If it's one thing, it's like they're not here to punish you, they're feedback. And that's the language, circling back to the language that your soul is just trying to knock on the door to get you to listen and to process. And you don't have to become that identity. You just need to be led through it.
I
Yeah.
just want everybody to have a wonderful life. How do we figure that out? We've got to get people to the place where they're growing spiritually and everybody is. And we're running out of time. I can't believe it. See how rapidly it goes? It's amazing.
Yes.
We'll
Yes.
have to I'll have to have you back because we have a lot more to talk about.
I would be honored. I love it. Yes, we do. We seem to just kind of chat, chat, chat.
We're going to have to talk some more, but this is what do you want people to take away from our conversation?
Wow. In fact, it's probably the last thing I said is, if you are feeling in the throes of emotion, to please, don't judge yourself for it. It's really a wake up call. It's a wake up call. And to choose, right? Choose the joy. And then there's that bridge. Here's where you're at. Here's the joy. And then whether it's your own spiritual techniques or whatever practice, whether it's something that you've learned from me, to level up to that point. So it's really about, don't judge yourself. You're exactly where you're supposed to be, and take the golden nuggets from the experts and ultimately go within and follow your heart, and it will lead you to your next best step.
That's very good. But emotion is something that we really all, I think, need to work on. And what you're doing is helping people to really learn to master their emotions and to do that in a positive, constructive, love-based way, which
Yeah.
is really best for all of us.
And it doesn't mean that you're never going to be triggered, but life doesn't have to bring you to your knees, or if it does, you will get up quicker, right?
Yes.
That's what
Yes.
resilience is. Resilience isn't about not feeling, pushing away.
Resilience. Yes.
It's how to shift that, recover quicker through it, not avoid
Yes.
it. That's the
Yes.
goal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Best and most powerful thing we can possibly do is be resilient, I think. So we
Yes.
can, whatever is going on, we can always be stronger from it as opposed to letting us it really get us down. Oh, I think this has been great. It's been so good to meet you, my dear. We'll do
Yes,
this
and you too.
again. I will be in touch.
That would be great. I would love that. Thank you.
So anyway, this has been Seek Reality with Roberta Grimes. And once again, I'm very, very glad you've been able to be with us today. Please never forget that you are a powerful, eternal being. You never began, you never will end. And I will say this to you every time we talk because it's so important to me that you always know this. And that sooner or later it's going to really sink in and you will be joyous, joyous for the rest of your life. Next week, our guest will be Nicole Froelich, and she's going to be somebody else who's new. And what can I say? I made both of these appointments in the same week. I was feeling very large-spirited. And Nicole's agent also had a compelling story, and it's too long for me to even tell you any of it here. But Nicole is what was called a practical mystic. I don't even know what that is. But she also didn't have a book that could be shared with me. Whatever she's doing, she's been doing it for 25 years, and it was very complicated, but she helps people in a powerful way. She's the host of Enlighten Up, which is a weekly podcast. She's the founder of The Forbidden Journey, which is a premium coaching program. She's produced over 50 guided meditations. She offers a variety of online courses, and whatever she does, it sounded pretty interesting. And I thought, okay, what the heck? So please be sure to join us next week and let's discover it all together. And this week, as I think you saw, we've been talking with someone very, very interesting and thoughtful. I was amazed when I discovered that Karen Fullerton, who is a certified lifeline practitioner, an intuitive Reiki and quantum energy practitioner. She's someone who speaks often at conferences, and she helps and empowers dispirited women to accelerate their emotional wellness, to spiral upward. She is somebody who independently has discovered a lot of what Craig Hogan and I have discovered during a lifetime almost of studying the greater reality, and she uses it to counsel people. I thought that takes really someone with a lot of smarts and a lot of sensitivity. I thought when I really looked into what they had sent me, I thought, whoa, I've got to meet this woman. And we will have her back because I want to talk to her even more. And I think what she teaches and what she counsels people with is going to help both genders. Mastering the use of our positive emotions to raise our emotional vibrations is what we come here to Earth to learn. And once we've done it enough and learned it enough, we don't ever have to come back. So that is powerful. So she does wonderful work for people who really need that work. So Karen, you're doing a wonderful job. As you
Thank
know,
you.
everyone, Craig Hogan is the president of Seek Reality Online, which is your one-stop resource for all things afterlife. Go to seekreality.com and learn from the greatest expert on the afterlife who lives on this world. And teachingsbyjesus.com is your single resource for all the beautiful divine truths that are brought to us in perfect love by the greatest teacher of them all, Master Jesus, who did not found Christianity. As Christianity dies, finally, you can learn from the greatest teacher who ever lived. And as you know by now, I have a bunch of books out, but there isn't time really to talk about them. If you want to talk about any of my books or anything, you can always contact me through the green contact block on robertagrimes.com. I answer every email. Just make sure you give me your correct email address so it doesn't bounce, which We do sometimes get bounced emails, and that makes me very sad because I usually write a long email in response. And all of the more than 500 past episodes of Seek Reality are available wherever audio podcasts can be found. You also can see new video episodes each week on Roku, Fire Stick, YouTube, and elsewhere. Meanwhile, this has been Seek Reality with Roberta Grimes. Please enjoy, please make the most of this coming week in our one reality, always knowing that you are a powerful, eternal being. And most of all, in all this universe, you are infinitely, powerfully, and eternally loved.
You've been listening to Seek Reality with Roberta Grimes. Roberta blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com. Join us every week as we explore what the afterlife evidence and modern science combine to tell us is true about the one reality we all share. Knowing the truth changes everything.